In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use your paddle shifters. So I made this video actually a really long time ago. I feel like there's a lot of questions still that I could have explained better in the video. So today is going to be basically like a part 2 to that video. So this one is a good question that I probably got like 1,000 times in the comments section on that video. And it's if you have to let go of the throttle whenever you upshift. And the answer is no. You actually shouldn't. So basically, if you're accelerating, you should not let your foot off the gas in order to upshift. If you're downshifting, that's a different story. If you're downshifting and you're like approaching like a traffic light, yeah, you obviously have to let go of the throttle and downshift into a lower gear. The next question is, when do you know when to shift? Like, I feel like I explained that very clearly in the last video, but I'm going to be explaining it again in this video. Next question is, can you downshift without stepping on the brake? Yes, that's completely fine. So I'm going to give you guys a verbal explanation first, and then we're going to put it into action. If that sounds good to you, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Typically, the left paddle downshifts and the right paddle upshifts. What does upshift and downshift mean? Upshift means going into a higher gear, and downshifting means going into a lower gear. When you press the downshift paddle once, your car will go down 1 gear. If you press the upshift paddle once, your car will upshift into the next gear, into the higher gear. Right paddle, higher gear, left paddle, lower gear. I'm gonna put the GoPro to my head and look like an idiot for you guys, but I'm gonna show you guys everything in front of me and I'm gonna explain everything. So give me 1 sec. So let's go ahead and fire up this bad boy. Exhaust on, of course, and I'm just gonna drive for a little bit to get the car nice and warmed up, and then we're gonna begin.
20 minutes later.
When you're at a complete stop like we are in right now, then we're gonna be in the lowest gear possible, which is in the first gear, gear number 1. When you're in first gear, it's very, very easy to accelerate from like a standstill. And when your RPMs are higher, aka like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, you have more access to the horsepower and torque that your car has. So right now in first gear, if we floor it, we're gonna go flying. If we're in 7th gear and we floor it, nothing's gonna happen. So let me demonstrate. So as you saw over there, we were in first gear and we were able to get the traction and we started flying. And as our RPM gauge was going higher, we were taking advantage of the horsepower and the torque that the car offered, which allows us to accelerate faster. And when we go into higher gears, we can continue with the acceleration and go into a higher speed. Okay, so we are in 6th gear. If I floor it right now, look what happens. Nothing happens. So let's say you're driving on a normal road and you're approaching a stop sign, okay? If you want to practice, what you can do is once you approach the stop sign, you can put your foot on the brake, start downshifting, downshift again, and downshift again until you're at a complete stop. So you guys might be asking, well, how do you know when to time your downshifts? It doesn't really matter that much because you're decelerating, you're hitting the brakes. If you accelerate with a bunch of cars in front of you, you have to be prepared to short shift because when you go into those higher RPMs, then you just don't want to go and end in the back of someone else's car. But since there are no cars in front of me right now, and it's a long open road, I can technically wait until 7,000 RPM to shift. But I guess the only thing I can say is that you guys just have to practice. Just practice. Don't be in manual mode if it's your first time. If it's your first time, take your car out of manual mode and just start using the paddles. So that way, if you do miss an upshift at redline, then your car doesn't explode or like you don't damage your car. So basically, in a nutshell, if it's your first time using your paddle shifters, do not use manual mode. You can use your paddles in automatic mode. You can downshift and upshift by yourself without being in manual mode, and that'll be good practice for the beginners. So as you can see, we're not in manual mode, but I'm gonna go ahead and just use my paddle shifters because you can do that in your car still. So I'm gonna go ahead and downshift into first gear, and then we're gonna accelerate. After a few seconds of not using your paddles, your car will just automatically go into shifting by itself. And while I was accelerating, I did not take my foot off the throttle. Once you feel comfortable with using the paddles in automatic mode, then you can go ahead and activate manual mode, and you just basically have to be very, very careful to make sure that you shift before you redline the car, because if you don't shift at redline, then you could potentially damage the vehicle. When you use the down paddle, you downshift into a lower gear. So for example, if you're in 7th gear, you'll go to 6th. If you downshift again, you go from 6th to 5th. If you downshift again, you go from 5th to 4th. If you're in 7th gear and if you're at the appropriate speed, you can downshift twice and go 2 gears down. And this is for AMGs specifically. I'm not sure about BMWs or Audis or anything like that. But in AMGs, you have this double declutching system. So you can hit the downshift paddle twice and it'll skip a gear when you downshift. And when you upshift, you have a choice of waiting until the red line to upshift, or you can short shift. And what short shifting means is you just basically shift anywhere before red line. So you can basically shift at 4,000 RPMs, 3,000 RPMs, doesn't really matter. So this is what you call short shifting. And the reason you would want to do that is if you don't want to accelerate too hard. Once you know how to use your paddle shifters and manual mode and whatnot, you can gain full control of the power your car has to offer. When you're accelerating and you want to upshift, do not take your foot off of the gas pedal. Keep your foot on the gas pedal, keep accelerating, and just upshift. If you were to take your foot off the gas pedal, shift, and then accelerate again, it's gonna create like this jerky, uneasy motion. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys what happens if you take your foot off the throttle and upshift, and then put your foot back on the throttle again. So we're in 1st gear, taking my foot off the throttle now, upshift, and then throttle again. It's a very jerky motion. It's not pleasant, so just keep your foot on the throttle like I'm doing right now. When you upshift, you have the choice of waiting till redline. Just know that if you wait until redline, then you're gonna be accelerating way faster than you normally would. Or what you can do is you can short shift and go on into the next gear. The higher the gear that you're in, the faster you can go. Going fast and accelerating fast are two completely different things. When you accelerate, it's like how quick you can go, versus fast means like the top speed of your car. The closer you are to the top speed of the car, the faster you're going. So just because I can go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in like, let's say for example, 3.5 seconds, it doesn't mean the car is fast. It means the car is quick. If I can go 220 miles per hour, then that means I am going fast. But if it takes my car like 45 seconds to reach 220 miles per hour, that means the car is still fast. It just means that it's not quick. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So yeah, just go out and practice, okay? It'll make much more sense to just go out and practice. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Quickly, in a nutshell, downshift paddle means to go into a lower gear. So for example, 5th gear to 4th gear, 4th gear to 3rd gear. The reason why you would want to go into a lower gear is if you want to accelerate harder. When you accelerate harder, your RPMs will go higher. When your RPMs go higher, that means you have more access to your car's horsepower and torque. When you have more access to your car's horsepower and torque, that means you can go flying. And when you do accelerate, you want to make sure that you upshift, so that way you go into the next gear. If you're in manual mode and you miss the upshift, your car is going to jerk around like this. It's going to be very unpleasant and you could potentially damage your car. So if you want to be safe, just make sure that you upshift before the red line. So for example, the red line in my car is 7,000 RPMs. Go ahead and shift at 6,000 or 5,000. You can go ahead and short shift at 4,000 if you want to. The reason why you would want to short shift is if you're on the streets and you want to control the distance between you and the car in front of you, or you just don't want to accelerate hard in general, then just go ahead and short shift. So yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Go ahead and try it, okay? I promise you will learn if you just put it into action. See you guys in the next video. Peace.
Corazon. Don't finna jump for the shit. All top when I speak, all cap with the speech till they caught up in the rap shit. I'm so out of line with the phrase game. Let's take a break, been a long day. Hit your line, what you fall through with the light sticks. Maybe help me spark the ideas. We got nowhere else to go. It's only up from there.
You don't have to upshift when you hit redline. You can short shift, it's fine. So right now we are at a complete stop at a traffic light and we are in first gear. That's the gear that you're gonna be starting off in whenever you're at a complete stop. Now the light is green, we're in first gear still. I'm upshifting because I don't wanna go accelerate around this corner. But now that we're straight, I shifted at 4,500, 4,500, and 4,500 again. We're in fifth gear now. Fourth gear, third gear, and second gear, and first. You don't have to downshift into first, but you can if you want to. So we're approaching this traffic light up ahead. I'm gonna downshift, and downshift again. One more time. And I'm downshifting while my foot is on the brake. So this guy's going wicked slow in the left lane. I'm gonna downshift so I can have access to more power, and then I'm gonna go. So if I didn't downshift over there, I wouldn't have accelerated that fast, because like I said before, when you're in a lower gear and when you floor it, you'll have access to more power.